energy, the hard-hitting analysis.
Yeah, I'm sorry. For me,
no apologies necessary.
The most surprising thing was actually that SBT took a map, so...
Bam! There it is. Well, we're getting ready for the first map here in this Best of 3 series. LM and TheOne will be facing off, and we are going to Tomb of the Spider Queen. LM opening up with a battleground choice, meaning that TheOne will have first pick.
Yeah, and this matchup here, LM against TheOne, could be a little bit of a grudge match because coming into this tournament, you know, LM, the Taiwanese team, they said our main goal is to beat a Chinese team. And if there was one team they were confident in beating, it was TheOne.
Yeah,
so
blood.
I want to see what TheOne has to say about that.
Do you think after seeing the first series, LM has a chance here to take on TheOne?
To be honest, I really felt that LM on the first map when they played on Towers of Doom was doing surprisingly well in their series. I didn't really expect them to get the kills. Then again, if you think about it, it's always really difficult to judge the first rounds because when you come in as a favorite team, you are trying to hide at least a few things. You're not taking it too serious. Well, you're taking it serious in the sense that you, of course, are trying to win, but you're willing to have a little bit more fun than you would otherwise have if you know that you are the clear favorite of the series and going up against an underdog. But even with that caveat, I felt it was quite surprising how well LM did on the first map. The second one was then a very different story. We've seen a similar situation with TheOne as well, so I say LM definitely has a chance. I would give the advantage to TheOne. But I would not say that the Taiwanese team goes into the series and has no opportunity or will have no opportunities of taking.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to gauge the power level of both these teams when they face off against some of the strongest Korean teams we have here. They faced off against Tempest, LM did. On the other side, TheOne faced off against KSV Black, which are both teams that we assume to be on the final day here at the HGC Eastern Clash. So yeah, a little bit of a difficult thing to gauge here, but we'll have to see if TheOne, the new blood, can take on LM.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of casting the lower brackets. Sometimes you see those teams that didn't do well in the first round, but are actually going to face an opponent on even power level here for the next one. And there is only limited data that we can fall back on when we talk about LM, right? Taiwan is a very cast-off region, only 4 teams really participating as well. And thus, I would like to fall back on something that we saw in the first series. I mean, Bui really doing quite well here, especially on the off solo laner. Nice Sonya, actually, coming into this tournament. And I really think Bui against Hugo, that could be our duel, the 2 star players facing each other off.
I mean, I expect fireworks out of the series. We've already seen an insane amount of kills in the games that we had before, and that was not just a one... In some games, it was a one-sided affair, but if you look at the grand scheme of things, it was usually also the underdogs getting their fair share of kills. So with now us having Taiwan facing off against China, I just expect both of them coming out swinging here. You mentioned 2 of the most impactful players, of course, already, Puyo and Hugo. You, in particular, are a huge fan of Hugo and his illusion
Hugo's
plays
my boy.
that we've seen. So, yeah, I'm expecting a lot. I'm expecting a very entertaining series, maybe not quite on the same level of what the Koreans are able to show, but I at least expect a lot of kills. I expect back and forth, and I expect a very aggressive series.
Well, speaking of fireworks, Dynamite start here for TheOne. Genji gets picked up right away, but will LM answer back with an Uther steal away, or will they be grabbing the Malfurion? Both those supports have been the 2 that we've been seeing a lot in our first 3 rotations.
The question is, are we finally going to see one of the infamous LM picks that they teased us with? They were talking about Gaslow. In the qualifiers, they played a lot of Alarak as well. That seems to be their staple, their go-to hero. But for now, we see an old familiar face here coming in from earlier when SBT faced off Blossom. We see Diablo back in the mix on the very same map on Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Yeah, and also with Hanzo right away. Yeah. So in the past, we've seen some Dragon Arrows into Apocalypse, which can be really annoying. Oftentimes, we see that around Infernal Shrines, where you are forced to kind of clump up on the objective itself. But of course, when Tomb of the Spider Queen is the map, then especially Diablo is the one that gains a lot of extra value, especially around Devil's Due then. So the extra orbs that we're going to see here are going to help him. There's a lot of walls that he can abuse to just get those extra stuns in. So there's already a very aggressive setup here. I'm liking it.
It seems like LM prioritizes this Diablo heavily. Just doesn't really matter who they're facing off against. In the first series, it was actually banned out in game number 1 before they got to the second phase. And so they've adjusted their drafting to make sure no matter what, Diablo's in their first couple of slots now. Is there a reason why we're seeing this so much for LM? I don't feel like I saw a lot of Diablo in their qualifier.
What I really like about LM as a team is that they're not afraid to experiment and try out new things. They maybe saw other teams do, especially other regions do. I mean, we saw Stukov, and Stukov I think it's safe to say that probably one of the least favorite supports in the Eastern regions. In China, he's barely played at all. In Korea, he's sometimes utilized as a niche hero, whereas in Europe and NA now, after Shad's dominance at the Western Clash, he's probably becoming quite a staple. So maybe they're going to fall back on those unknown weapons in the Eastern meta.
And we're continuing with Garrosh again. Like, he's been everywhere. And we have actually seen him a lot at the Western Clash, and his win ratio at the Western Clash was also very convincing. Of course, a lot of that came through the Zealots and how they performed there. But especially here at the Eastern Clash now, Garrosh is a top priority for any team and has, I think, has actually an 100% involvement rate overall. Yeah. So pretty impressive to see that. And to be fair, also a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Garrosh is back, turning from that situational pick into the mainstream, mobster mainstream, I want to call it. Like, it seems to me like Zealots have really shaped the meta across the globe so much with their preferred picks at the Western Clash.
Sure, definitely. They've definitely left their imprint on there, but I feel like Garrosh has always been on the Eastern Clash for a long time, especially in Korea. They love that hero, the ability to have the rotations coming in, and then when you pair it with Malfurion, anytime you get a pick, that target is most likely picked off. We saw Murden on BOE actually having a hard time surviving that initial pull-in, which is a big statement because Murden, obviously, as you know, is very robust.
And especially Diablo has to be extremely careful when he goes up against Garrosh, so that could be a fun dynamic to observe in the game.
Yeah, Diablo, if you don't have the Shadow Charge ready after a toss combo, it's really hard, almost impossible to get out here. And look at that, the Tassadar ban here coming in against the Diablo. They no longer want to fear the infamous Diablo Shadow Charge into the Force Wall combo that is so easy to really execute, especially after 13 and 16 with the combo talents.
And now that there's actually a lot on the line, Blaze is starting to make his appearance a lot more, and I like that a lot. Yeah, exactly. So, because we're always talking about a Korean team or a favorite coming into a series against an underdog and maybe not giving their all, maybe like hiding one thing or two, trying to make sure that others that watch the series can't gauge too much. But the same can be true of an underdog as well, that they already realize, okay, our opponent just outclasses us. No matter what we bring to the table right now, it's likely that we lose the series. So oftentimes you have these teams also just preparing for the next round already, thinking, okay, if we have something that we feel is extremely strong here, maybe not show it as a high priority in that series as to not outgive our future opponent any kind of indicator of what they could ban out or take away from us.
Well, TheOne was missing some wave clear, especially on 2 minutes Spider Queen and Battleground where you need it, and they round out their draft nicely with said wave clear. Leoric, again, being popular in this tournament, and then Greymay as a final clean pickup.
Yeah, Leoric, of course, being one of the few heroes that Hugo actually plays really, really well. Similar to SCSC from Ballistics, his hero pool is very limited. Illidan, of course, not really an option here against so many counters, the Diablo, the Blaze as well, the Uther even. So I like the Leoric, as you said, Trick, offers a little bit of wave clear as well. Greymay, though, really interesting because now we have a little bit of a conflict between, for TheOne's ranged assassin players. Is it going to be Meng who plays the Genji or the Greymay? He's really solid on both heroes, or is he going to share things with Lucky out a little bit?
I'm really interested to see what's going to be the next pickup here, because there's a couple... In any kind of European setup, the one thing that I would look towards now is immediately, okay, I'm going to see Medivh in this. That's not going to happen at the Eastern Clash, so the damage was what was missing here, and Junkrat is going to be the final answer here, also providing a lot of AoE damage and wave clear here, which is going to be really beneficial for them. But that's a pretty solid draft that they're having, so... That's what I liked from LM in the previous games as well. The question is just how much of an impact can they have with that draft, and can they also get their combos off that we've talked about at the start.
Yeah, Junkrat definitely very threatening, brings in the poke, and of course brings targets in. But enough about the conversation about heroes. I want to talk to you guys. Who do you think is going to walk away with the win? I think for me, I'm looking at TheOne for the entire series. How about you?
I think there's only one team for me to fall back on. It is TheOne. I think it is their time to shine, finally.
You see, I'm not the only one making bad jokes. Like, that is a German thing.
That's why they hired me.
Okay, all right. We got 2 of them up here.
Now
Jeez.
we outnumber you, Trick. You know where to run.
I'll just smirk. It's all I'll do. How about you, Caldor?
Yeah, I'm going to say the Chinese team is going to take it as well.
Okay, so TheOne getting the votes from us. You at home, of course, have been voting as well, so we'll see what you guys are thinking about at home. But TheOne hoping to take on LM. But again, with that being said, I am hopeful that LM can show up. They are the only Taiwan team we have here, and so far, they have mentioned that their major goal is to win against the Chinese team. And guess what? This is their only chance to do so. And right now, you at home are believing in LM. 71% of you voting for the team to beat the One.
And I can't blame them. I mean, LM, they do have the potential. They have the play material to work with. Bui constantly charging and rushing the top ladder spots in the Eastern Grandmaster, Korean Grandmaster server. There is so much raw talent in this game. But the same we can say about the One. They're oftentimes considered to be the next big thing, the next big deal in China. And I just want to see who is going to carry out and going to initiate the momentum wave in this series.
I mean, we have good combos, as we said before, that are potentially there. The question is simply, will the execution be on the level where you can bring them into play? And if that's the case, then especially LM has a couple of really nice tools, as we're seeing them here to the left. With Blaze on the bot lane, they have really nice control there. And then it's the Hanzo and, of course, Diablo composition that can really wreck an entire team fight if the One is not careful.
By the same token, though, of course, we see the ever-deadly Genji coming in here from the One, and it is indeed going to be Meng on that hero. So Lucky taking over the Grey main, and Hugo, of course, rocking the full golden combo here on the Leoric. Beautiful to see. Now, Kaldor, but both teams, not really necessarily known to have the greatest macro, but up to this point, they always had to face Korean overlords. Who would you say has a little bit of an advantage at that point when it comes to rotations, when it comes to playing the macro game?
I would definitely say that right now Genji is going to be the huge game changer for this, since he will always have the easy jump down to the bot lane and help Leoric out to win his lane. So Blaze has to be a bit more careful of how he positions himself here. And just with Genji's mobility, it's a tool that the One could use to dominate those rotations. You can already see on the minimap that Genji immediately started to move between the mid and the bot lane to make sure that they can put the extra pressure on. And once that you took a few of those hit points down, you make Leoric's life just so much easier. Yeah,
the solo laners in particular, they're going to have to be so careful when they face Genji. So communication is going to have to be key here for sure. In the meantime, though, we see pretty good wave clear in favor of LM. Genji jumps in, immediately being surrounded by both enemy heroes and minions, not really being able to find a good target.
Yeah, Meng has to be a bit careful when he goes in with this E, just simply because we have Uther always ready for a stun, so he needs to be cautious. But there's the pressure at the bot lane, as we talked about. Blaze is immediately in trouble, and to an extent where he nearly fell, and now also a KT4 all of a sudden is having the same problem. So with that simple rotation, not only did the One immediately demand attention and reaction out of LM, they also were able to force Blaze already to go straight up and tap, and they really forced a lot of free damage out there. So that was a very nice start into this game for them.
Yeah, I think cooldown management is going to be so important for heroes like Diablo here. If you play against a Garage, you need to make sure that your escape tools, respectively the Shadow Charge here for Diablo, are always ready. Otherwise, you may find yourself outnumbered, outgunned, and outperformed eventually.
Yeah, so, I mean, from this point, we have both the teams going straight for the early camp here. And now it becomes just a question of when are we going to see those camp? Because if the One gets their camp early, then LM could actually hold their own night camp back a little bit just to have the extra tower shot range on their end to have a bit of an easier defense. So that could definitely help them out here. But outside of the camps, we're still having a bit of brawling happening here. And that's where the roots come into play, as KT4 is once again in trouble. And this time Garrosh hits home, and that's all that Malfurion needed to deliver final 8 points and shots. That's the first kill of the game as Diablo is down.
Yeah, first blood going over the China here. And the One, can they really capitalize on it? Can they maybe take the breather of one of the enemy main tanks not being in the fray here to pay the diamonds in, to pay the gems in, or maybe pressure some other lanes? Leoric going immediately back to the bottom, not losing any XP unnecessarily, is now prime when it really comes to China. Hanzo, good interrupts there.
Yeah, definitely. There's, by the way, one thing, not only Hanzo has the interrupts, by the way, we also have with Junkrat another fantastic tool to make sure that interrupts are insanely difficult to perform by the One. But we saw the two camps collide just outside of the tower range of LM's towers, and that's actually really important because, as I said before, the One kept their camp early, so you already knew it was coming. If LM would have delayed their own camp by another 3, 4, 5 seconds, they would have an easy clear with the help of their own tower, so that would have been a huge measure in their advantage. But for now, the One with a slight lead in experience, and also, of course, those gems that were already turned in, so the Chinese teams in a slightly better position right now, but nothing too great.
Yeah, Wild Wolf unfortunately missing the entangling roots on Uther there just by a smidge. Now we see a big turn coming in for LM though, and they're basically brushing off their gem count a little bit, 28 to 25 right now. Getting pretty close. Blaze in the meantime getting pressured by two heroes, Leoric and Meng on the Genji.
Yeah, but Blaze did actually well because he interrupted Hugo on the turn-in, and that was an important one here. But now he needs to be cautious, and there's the stun, but that could have been the end of Blaze. But with those delay tactics that we're seeing for LM, they're really able to get their own gem count up pretty significantly. And with the interrupt potential through Hanzo and a scatter shot and Junkrat, they should be able to keep TheOne away from turning in for quite some time if they play their cards right.
Yeah, now, of course, Neil Peasants available for Leoric. Such a huge talent, especially on Tomb of the Spider Queen, I feel. The additional wave clear when you hit those PvE targets is so huge, dominating when it comes to dominating lane control and pushing your opponents further back. And we see the first turn-in of the Web Weavers for TheOne.
Yeah, and with that now, if they... Oh, they need to be really careful here.
Don't
because
die now.
If we all of a sudden have now Garrosh coming in and securing a kill, that would be a disaster for LM. But we have from Uta the Hand of Protection Cleanse coming out right away as the Web Weavers are on the ground. Junkrat with the Solar Defense up at the top. But the main pressure comes to the mid lane as we're having Garrosh again looking for a quick move against Hanzo this time, but immediately Boyo is jumping out.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, Calder, with the addition of Junkrat and Hanzo, the two Overwatch heroes, they have such good poke and at the same time good wave clear when it comes to keeping the enemy team members at bay. And TheOne, although they're getting a tower here and there, they're not really making the big moves just yet, but maybe with that aggressive maneuver by Meng, they can put the pressure. They at least force the trade out of the Blaze player.
Yeah, they got a fair amount of damage out of this one. Bit of an experience lead, nothing too insane yet. Once more, the pressure on Garrosh as now KT4 on Diablo started to move in. But especially with Greymane being around through these pushes, you have the extra pressure against structures that you can use to take some towers down, break through the gate, and maybe even go for the fort itself. But in experience, LM is still holding up, and that's also mainly through Junkrat up at the top lane, who has been able to soak an extra wave or two.
And oftentimes when you play on Tomb of the Spider Queen, you really want to make sure that you snowball very hard with that first turn-in, because if you don't get a lot of value out there, the enemies can actually turn that back on you and get level 10. If they turn in now for, let's say, at level 9, maybe close to 10, they're really going to be able to shift the tide balance quite around. Yeah,
the camp on the other hand at the bot lane has to be given up now, and Blaze is barely getting that, but all of a sudden Garrosh is appearing, and that's a problem. And Shadow Charge is being used as KT4 is attempting to move away, but we have the move in, and that is a dead Diablo right there. Blaze is also falling, and again it all happens through the Siege Giant camp that LM was trying to get here. We're just lingering around for too long and allowing not only Genji but also Garrosh to move in and make that a numeric advantage in favor of the Chinese team.
And now all that I tried to explain earlier is going to turn upside down. Now it is LM true. They did get the turn in, but they cannot really utilize that well. Blaze only arriving back right now. Let's see how much damage TheOne can actually deal onto the Web Weavers before they deal any significant damage to themselves. In the meantime, Meng, once again, he's the troublemaker. He is basically all over the map right now. Really, you know, getting reset after reset, causing so many headaches for LM.
Yeah, Greymane and Leora got a free defense at the top in the bot lane. Yeah. Level 10 is in play, and that's where we see Cursed Bullet now also coming in against Diablo, of course. But there's still a bit of pressure happening in the mid lane, where LM is now picking up their own level 10 ability. Once again, Diablo in play, but here comes an attempt to get the kill. Nice move against Uther, but so far no kill, and the bunker is preventing the worst, at least for now.
And here comes the Riptire. It is thirsty. It wants to get the kill, and it gets it for a double kill. Immediately, only one retaliation kill on Hanzo, and immediately I think LM is going to try to take that advantage. The mid lane was weakened before, but how much can they get?
Meng nearly falling here, barely surviving, and then the Globe heals him up again. It was an even trade in the end, though, 2 for 2 as we see here, but that was a rough spot that TheOne was in at the beginning of the fight, and the bunker play that we saw from Blaze really helping them out there, especially Uther was in so much trouble and could have died a lot faster, but was able to get a lot of heals out in the meantime and make sure that his team got sustained through that.
Now both teams do have some time to lick their wounds. However, if you pay close attention to the gem count in the bottom right, we see a pretty big lead for TheOne. They do have enough to potentially get in another turn-in of Wave Weavers, whereas LM, they're still going to have to save a little bit to farm a little bit. Only 42 out of 55 right now.
So we have also now another camp taken, and again, here comes the aggression against Blaze, and we talked about that at the beginning. With the mobility that you have through Genji, you can put that pressure on so easily. Then you have Garrosh moving in as well, and that makes
he
things
lost a
even
couple
worse.
of gems there.
So now with him down, the gems are being protected. You have 4 that just completely zone the area, and that's of course a disaster for LM. Since not only will the TheOne now have a free turn-in, but they also made sure that it's much harder for LM to get their own turn-in completed.
Hugo pressured by 3 members of LM. A huge march of the Black King. So much self-sustain. Is he going to make it out alive? Good for him. Even if he ends up dying, he just paid the majority of the gems here. And keep in mind, even in his undying form, Leor can contribute a little bit to a team fight.
That also could have been way worse, because the combo with Garrosh into a Malfurion route actually failed here for the TheOne. They tried to put Diablo in a bad spot, and it didn't quite work out. But Leoric is, of course, soon going to be back just in time for the Web Weaver push. So that's going to help them. And they also have that level 13 now available. So the talent advantage coupled with the spot that they are now in through the Web Weaver presence is just absolutely fantastic for the TheOne. And they need to make sure that they get some structures with this as well.
This is a time for the TheOne to take some buildings. In the meantime, Genji going in, a beautiful combo. And once again, Kaldor, it is Blaze getting caught out of position over and over again.
Blaze is, they're just not communicating properly when they're not seeing anybody on the map. The TheOne is playing a lot with vision, and they're using it to invade, go really deep and catch these solo laners. And this is one of those things where LM just has to learn to be respectful when they don't see any movement on the map itself and they don't know about the positioning of the opponent's team. Because this has pretty much been a theme throughout the game, and the TheOne has been roaming constantly, so LM needs to respect that. And if they don't have vision, the solo lane in particular needs to be the one that takes a step back and says, okay, I'm going to play this one safe.
Yeah, a little bit of a shout out there as well to Meng, who's using those swift strikes from Genji to always position himself behind the Blaze, so he can't just use the dash to get to safety. There's always going to be one body to intercept and block any escape mechanisms.
So once again, Diablo trying to look for a bit of a counterplay here, but he himself now in trouble. Apocalypse comes out. Here comes the stun as we see the Divine Storm coming in, and Genji is immediately going down. Very nice CC comp from LM, and it has been a bit of a theme here at the Eastern Clash already, with Uther not heading into Divine Shield, but instead going for the extra stun. So the CC very highly prioritized at the Eastern Clash here. In this case now the combo with the Dragon Arrow on Hanzos, and Diablo with the Apocalypse, and Uther with the Divine Storm. So huge CC chains that are being utilized against the TheOne.
Yeah, now we see on the one hand, the TheOne suffering a pretty critical blow here with Meng, one of their main DPS sources, getting killed, and immediately they're going to have to open up the map. They're allowing LM to pay for now 49 out of 55, so not enough just yet. Hugo tanking a couple of those abilities, tanking a little bit through. He ends up falling. He does end up falling. Close escape.
There's definitely a couple of things to be said about the game. We have 11 kills so far, 11 minutes in, so it's very brawly. We see a lot of fights happening, but despite the 2 turn-ins that we already saw, we have the TheOne with only 1 fort taken down, and that's very little if you think about how this game has evolved. The fights are continuing, by the way. Diablo goes down 1 more. He had 100 souls and is going to lose those. Riptire is out, the bunker on the ground, but Wild Wolf is in trouble here, and he goes down as well. So all of a sudden we are seeing with the Dragon Blade, TheOne just going in. Genji looking for the second kill, doesn't get it. We saw Garrosh attempting to isolate another target, but the TheOne is moving back for now, closing in on level 16 talents.
Yeah, and as you said, I totally agree with you. Like, they did get kills here and there, especially thanks to Meng on the Genji, but the really big hitters, the really big capitalization on those victories isn't really there just yet.
Yeah, you don't really see those rotations happening around turn-ins and getting value, and that's something that we see a lot more prioritized in the Western scene, whereas there is a clear focus on team fights and trying to get kills here in
European
the Eastern
efficiency?
meta. Pretty much.
There we go. No, I totally agree with you. Like, knowing how to win a battle is one thing, but knowing how to capitalize and getting more value from your victories is a totally different story. Whether it's, you know, just going for a boss, whether it's turning in and really making sure that some of those structures fall is so crucial, is so critical. Now, that's the first step, though. Mercenary Camp unlocked.
Yeah, now that we are seeing also the death timers, of course, increase, I would really like to see a bit more of this, especially on the side of the TheOne if they're able to get kills. But it's the blue Web Weavers that will come down first. LM was able to get a turn in. The question is, can they keep Blaze alive? The bunker is on the ground. That's a cooldown use, but can they maybe force that kill still? And it turns out that LM easily walks away from this one, as TheOne is attempting to set up their defense against the Web Weavers.
Now Blaze has to be even more cautious. All of his defensive abilities are now on cooldown. The trade is no longer there. The bunker, although it has a very short cooldown in the first place, still not ready just yet. And the cleanses are going in left and right. Apocalypse through.
And there's immediately the kill against Diablo. He didn't have his soul stack, so at this point he is just not that hit point heavy. It was immediately exploited by TheOne, so this is an easy defense against the Web Weavers once more. And that also comes at the disadvantage that LM had going into the fight. They didn't have level 16. They now finally have it, but it doesn't really help them. They try to push with a bit of poke from a distance, but if at any point TheOne gets close enough with Garrosh here, for example, then it would be just a nightmare.
Ooh, Genji going after his brother here. After Hanzo, he manages to escape thanks to natural agility. And when you're a tiny Dibbles, when you just spawned after losing all of your soul stones here on the Diablo, you need to play a little bit more cautiously, whether it's running away. Oh, never mind. That is an exposed Junkrat here, using the Concussion Mine to escape to safety here. TheOne, although they're trying really hard to make something happen right now, it looks to me like LM, they have stabilized a little bit more. Also, keep in mind that all these minions here helping out when it comes to intercepting skill shots like the cocktails, like the Genji Shurikens. I think this is a pretty good moment for LM to stabilize and maybe force more.
I still really liked how aggressive Genji immediately was towards Junkrat, and the Garnet Devil barely got away. It was a very close call. And now, of course, there's again the turret potential, and here we go again, going for Diablo. It was a nice flip by Garrosh, the counter-engage attempt, but once more the March being used, but that wasn't really helpful. Down he goes, Leo is dead. The question is, are we going to see the counter kill?
Meng in the back line.
Meng with a blade, and he goes in, swinging.
He goes swinging, he gets the kill, swings back immediately, and now the next designated target is the Blaze. The eternal rivalry between Blaze and Genji, once again being won by Meng. And after losing Hugo so early on the Leoric, they still turned around. It is now a 4 versus 3. Hugo, keep in mind, is Leoric. The Undying trait allows him to come back faster, and they know exactly that. TheOne are trying to finally put their hands, put the nail down on the boss.
And LM is actually posturing around. I don't mind them trying to poke a little bit with Junkrat here, but they are way too close. At this point, he's barely able to get back, but still, that is still toying around with fire. With 2 heroes down, they need to be super careful. If they stagger deaths here on top of the boss being taken, that would be
the health bars, though. TheOne is dropping rapidly, and I think with a well-timed assault here, maybe LM could have actually made something happen, but they're a little too afraid right now. But this is one of the situations where you either make a call to stay back or you go in. And I think they actually could have tried it, right?
Yeah.
It's a tough call to make for sure.
I'm not quite sure if they can really engage into it. Poking from a distance is one thing, but if you only have 2 squishies on the board and the healer, then there's nothing they can really tank at the front line. And once that your damage dealers on the one side get into that back line, you're just going to lose out on it. So poking is fine, but if they're outside of the poke, don't get a kill, I don't think you can engage into that 3 versus 5. The one thing that I still have to mention here is that the boss at the top is now taken out, and we have them closing in on level 20.
Yeah.
But if you look at the map, what did they actually get so far? There's
exactly
2 forts destroyed. You need to start translating the advantages that you have into taking down keeps. If that doesn't happen and LM catches up and gets their own level 20 talent, then all of a sudden you play on eye level with an opponent that has an equal chance of winning the game, even though you have been dominating from the get-go. So all the kill advantages, all the experience advantages need to finally amount to something.
Yeah, TheOne, they received several tickets to win City. They just need to use them. Like, the boss, I totally agree with you. Like, they could have utilized it in the top lane. They could have pushed alongside with it. And just when the boss was about to fall, maybe they could have gotten the secondary defense line in the top lane, getting the towers, getting the gate, and then fall back. They still would have had enough time to pay. And now with that level 20, maybe they're finally, you know, brave enough and determined enough to really go in for the big fight.
And Junkrat is still defending at the top, so this keep here has to fall. This is really something where they can't just screw around. They need to go in for this and try and take it. And at this point, already looking for maybe even a kill here. Already CC is being used, Apocalypse is being utilized. As we have Garrosh going down, the keep will still be destroyed, so that's a big win for them here, as they're attempting to re-engage. A good route covering the retreat. They still have the 2 level advantage, and taking the keep of the bot lane down is a pretty big step, because at any point in the late game there could be that standoff towards the boss area at the top, and then your bot lane is going to push against the opponent, which is going to give you a time advantage.
Yeah, so they did lose their main tank, Garrosh, but look at the gem count. They do have enough to make another payment happen. The bottom lane is already naked. It is open now. They could even think of going for the macro play, take 2 mercenaries. Most importantly, the Siege Shine Cam at the bottom, distracting and empowering their pushes potentially even more. Looks like LM, they know exactly that they need to fight. They can't just let TheOne take one objective now after the other. They need to make something happen right now while they have the numbers advantage.
And I really like that they are
That was a
aggressive
good call.
about it. So they are stealing the camp away. TheOne needs to be careful because the staggered death would be maybe not quite a death sentence for them, but definitely allowing too much leeway for LM here. So it's a pretty cool move by LM to be as aggressive. TheOne needed to go back, and now with 5, they will try and complete that turn-in. They still have the Storm Talent advantage. They have the 67 gems. So what they should be doing now is to look for the turn-in and then try to annihilate a second keep.
Yeah, I'm looking forward for that Malfurion level 20. In particular, the Blink Silence is always a pleasure to behold. Now they're going to try to pay their final gems, and maybe with that next wave push, TheOne is going to be able to finally put the nail in the coffin here. And LM, they're trying desperately to close in the disadvantage with the Storm-Tail Talons. Can they get it in time, though?
Now at the bot lane, these Siege Giants need to be taken out, or that wave is not going to do too much for you. And Genji already moved in, but we have also catapults roaming through the bot lane, so it wasn't really too bad. Now they can focus on the top or the middle if they want here. The mid lane is going to be easily taken out as well, with the camp now assaulted right away. But they still need to utilize the web reverse now to push something, and I would say that is going to be one of the outer lanes for sure.
And now no longer do they need to pay very close attention to the Genji, but now with level 20, the ultimate power spike for Greymane has arrived. Executioner and Hunter's Blunderbuss, we see that combo. A lot of people actually don't realize how much damage you can dish out with the Executioner. You can basically splash behind the original target, dealing tremendous cone AoE damage. So especially in those siege battles, the enemy team LM, they're always going to have to be on their tippy toes on where they position themselves when it comes to dealing with a Greymane siege.
Yeah, so they are actually giving up a lot of leeway here. They're pushing through the top more, but in the mid lane, the defense has already been successful. Down to the bottom of the map, the web weavers are taken out too. They're focusing on the boss instead as well. And that's going to respawn another 16 seconds, so I don't really think
that was a big miscalculation.
They didn't really get as much out of that turn-in as they were really hoping for, because the only thing they killed was basically the fort in the mid lane, and I don't think that's enough.
I do want to say this, TheOne is not playing like a Chinese team right now. They're no longer going for brawl. They're no longer going for as many fights as they can. They're a little too intimidated. I mean, a lot is on the line, though. Let's not forget about that. If you lose this series here, you're out of the tournament. You're no longer be able to compete in the Eastern Clash. They're a little too scared, though, in my opinion.
I mean, TheOne is looking for a flip. The one thing they are really afraid of is just the death timers being so long right now, so high right now, because through the bot lane, the keep can be taken out if they lose a team fight, and they know that. Especially with that poke that we have through Hanzo and through Junkrat, we can easily burst that down. And that is the Auric already in a bit of trouble, but we have the poke happening, and yep, here, March of the Black King, but it's just not enough, and Leo is down. The arrow hits on the other hand. The question is, can they get another kill? And it looks like Malfurion might fall, and he does.
They're patiently waiting. The ice block doesn't last until forever. Genji is trying the best he can to keep his team alive. It is a quad kill already. Only Greymane left to tell the tale of his fallen comrades, and Junkrat is having none of it. A clean wipe for LM.
And there's a good chance that LM is actually going to finish this on the bot lane now, and that's the problem. If you lead the entire game and you never really use your advantage to get significantly ahead, then you can't complain if in the end a team fight that goes against your team wipe all of a sudden turns the tides of the entire game, and that's exactly what we're looking here right now.
For a moment I thought they were considering the boss after they retreated from the bottom, but of course they realized we have a faster way to end the game if we go through the mid. That one keep is not going to be a bigger obstacle. Leoric is back.
Uther down, okay, he still has his 20. Works, but 17 seconds, 10 seconds, yeah, that's just not enough time.
I mean, Hugo is a monster, but even he can't do the impossible.
Core is, on the other hand, significantly losing damage because the catapults are on the core on the left side. So if they can somehow stall, they might actually pull that off. And Junkrat is down. That's a lot of the damage gone. And the core inside of LM is on 40%. They might just be able to stall enough time to win the game after all through the Winions. 25% against 37 on the left side. The defense is strong, and they actually make it happen. TheOne is able to defend on 13%. 37 on the left side. Diablo is back to business, but now, of course, it's an easy going for TheOne as they are starting to cross the map.
Yeah, the catapults are not done just yet. That means the next mini wave is going to pour in. That's going to give so much vision and so much momentum as well to TheOne, and they held it so close. We thought Hugo wasn't enough, but as you said, Calder, they only needed to buy time for the catapults to finish. The Winions are the real deal here.
Yeah, the real problem was definitely that they lost Junkrat this early, so that was a massive issue. And you don't have a Divine Shield, keep that in mind. There is only the Divine Storm, so you could just simply Divine Shield someone. And now, after all, TheOne are going to be the team that succeeds in game number 1, taking the lead against LM.
Not the cleanest of victories, mind you, but still a very well-deserved one, because as you said, the target prioritization was just immaculate here. They realized Junkrat was out of position, no protective tools available. They took him out very quickly, and just as we said, that's about it, Trixler.
Very back and forth between the two. For a second there, I'm watching LM and I'm like, okay, their reactive style